Hello there everybody, my name is Boomer Brown and welcome back to Ballymoon Castle, where this morning we are gearing up for the start of the harvest season. And in order to kind of speed things up today, I have dragged out the cultivator, which I'm going to put on the fence, and have a worker run along behind us with that, just in order to try and get things sped up a little bit. It is a case that I haven't messed around with the winter wheat or winter barley before, and that's mostly because I've been running out of time, so I'm going to take some precautions this time around. Now obviously, in order to do the said harvesting, we are going to need a harvester, and once again I am turning to Black Sheep modding, and I've got my hands on a Massey Ferguson 27 and the associated header. Now this is a slightly older harvester, and if we jump in, we can have a look at the very ancient looking control system, which is really quite nice. We've also got the interactive control as well with the door inside, and I have to say that I've kind of started getting into these slightly older looking machines after playing with the RX32 in FS19, but for now I'm going to leave that sitting there, because of course I have just been keeping an eye on the crop moisture, which is actually doing a lot better than it was last night. I think we are down to 7% at this stage. Yeah, we're down to 7% crop moisture, so that should be pretty decent. So I probably will get that running as soon as possible. The plan, of course, is to take out both of those fields, our canola as well as our wheat, and then hopefully make our way across the road and take out field number 7 as part of a contract as well. That is also a green field that is ready to harvest, since it was us that planted it as part of a contract back in the spring. So late yesterday evening I did make a start on the fencing as promised, and I've kind of sort of secured this area here to kind of help guide the cattle in. It's mostly for role play, since the cattle aren't actually going to be coming out into this field. And this brings us nicely around to the last little section that I need to fill in here. So let's actually jump into the shop and have a look. And I do believe it's the 2 panel that we need. Let's just swing ourselves in here and get ourselves lined up. I think that's pretty much good enough. It's not going to be perfect, and it is very difficult to get these things perfect, but hey, it looks the part for a little bit of roleplay. I've also put in a second gate up here just in case I ever want to gain access to this watering hole, even though it's a case that you can't actually get water from it, but I suppose we could place a water sale point in there at some stage. Anyway, we are going to be needing the 675 this morning, so I am going to close up the sideboards and the tailboard, and this is going to, I'm going to take this down to the workshop and get the high boards fitted, because we're going to use this to unload our harvester today. So tractors are in position, and I think I'm going to start off by rolling this around. Oops. I think I smashed into, I crashed into a fence post. Not to worry, this is just a lease anyway. So let's get this machine unfolded. Need to get that PTO connected. There we go, and we can start up the harvester. And what I think I'm going to do is end up taking off maybe 2 headlands for now. Why aren't I? There we go, that's a little more like it. Yeah, so I'm going to take off something like 2 headlands and see how we get on from there. go, the canola has been harvested and now it is time to start on the wheat field. I did actually remember that there is a tiny little amount of it over here that I accidentally planted in the grass meadow at the start of spring, and I did promise that I would try to take it out with the combine. So what I'm going to do is just get myself lined up down here and I'm going to take out that tiny little bit. But first I need to unload this. So still a little bit of cultivating to do, and as per usual the worker is going to end up missing a small bit here that I'm going to have to come back over, but that is not a major concern. And there we go, the tiniest amount of wheat imaginable. A whole 32 litres, but still it is going to end up being used to create seed again. And I also should probably get my straw swath sorted out as well before I go taking on the next field, because it is of course something that I want to do, is collect the straw and bale it up for the cattle. Two fields are at this stage pretty much harvested, and really it didn't take all that long to do, but then again I wasn't actually expecting it to take all that long to do, and it does seem as though the gauges, or at least the speed gauge, actually works on the controls there, which is actually a very nice touch. And I think that is us. We can shut off the harvester if I can find the controls. There we go, and I'm just going to actually drop this over into the yard. We don't actually have a header trailer for it, and the reason for that is that it was delivered overnight, or at least the reason is that I'm role playing that it was delivered overnight, because it turns out that when you reset items on this map, they spawn back into the main yard here. I also need to get the baler up here, which I think is going to be the next job before I go contracting. I did manage to get the little bit that the cultivator, that the worker couldn't get done with the cultivator, taken care of, so that field is essentially ready for sowing, and this field should be ready within the next couple of hours at least. And of course there's a tiny little bit left in the harvester because it never works out perfectly, so we haven't actually gotten bad yields at all. We've managed to get a little over a trailer worth of wheat and almost 2 trailers worth of canola, which are no doubt going to bring in quite a bit of of money for us. Granted, if we had bigger fields, we would have much bigger yields. I mean, these yields are pretty small, but then again, we do have very small fields, at least for this season anyway. So I'm not entirely sure if I mentioned it in one of the previous episodes or not, but we have actually changed over our baler, and there is a reason for that. So obviously back at the start of the year, we purchased, or well, close to the start of the year, I suppose. I can't really remember when I purchased it, but I did get hold of a John Deere baler. Now obviously we have a Fendt branded baler, and the reason for that is of course the tow bar at the back there, which does allow us to attach one of the trail behind bale stackers, which kind of makes all of this work a little bit easier. I'm not actually going to use the bale stacker this time round, so we're just going to deal with that using the telehandler and doing it by hand. Anyway, I'm going to get this done, and I'll catch up with you when we have an idea how many bales we have made. And there we go, time to unload this baler, and I think we actually have to switch off the baler first, and then we can hit Y and unload it. So we do have about half a bale inside the baler, but that's not going to be much of a concern, because of course the baler is just going to go back into the shed, and it will end up converting it into whatever we decide to bale up next. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do now is grab the telehandler and get those bales removed from the field. The truck still hasn't arrived to take away the combine just yet, so that is going to be sitting there for a little while. And I think for now I'm just going to back this into the shed here out of the way, and we can jump into the telehandler and get those bales picked up. And there we go, I think that is all of them. We've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Let's actually just check on the statistics, just in case I am missing one somewhere. Let's see, created bales 15, and we've gotten a total of 144 this season alone. So yeah, we have managed to gather up all of the bales, and I think I'd better strap them down before I head off. So I'm just going to move these off the field, and I think that we have more than enough time to get a contract done this evening, if not two. I definitely want to see if there is a contract for a little bit of harvesting, especially over on field number 7, since we are already in the mood for harvesting. And beyond that, I don't actually know. It may end up taking the rest of the evening. The other thing is I want to get a good night's sleep tonight, because I am going to be starting off again very early tomorrow morning, hopefully around 5 again, because we are going to be cutting quite a bit of silage tomorrow, and I want to get a jump on it. The reason, of course, that I'm so interested in trying to get a contract squished in today is, of course, because With the silage tomorrow, I am looking at hiring in an extra worker just to do the levelling and compacting over at the silage pit, because I don't think I'm going to be able to get it done all by myself this time around. The last field was pretty small, but the amount that I need to get done tomorrow is going to be a hell of a lot more than what I did yesterday, so I am kind of anxious to get a little bit of help with that if I can, and so any extra bit of money coming in from contracts would be more than useful. So I think I'm going to head across the road to our neighbours on field number 7 and see what the situation is over there. And I couldn't let the final day of summer pass without, of course, paying a visit to the sheep, who are actually doing much better than they have been for the rest of the year. They are at last up to 70% health. So the main reason I am, of course, up here is because I want to get an early start on the silage tomorrow. So it's a case that I am taking care of them this evening so that I am not going to be disturbed by them tomorrow while I am struggling to get the silage harvest done. So today has actually gone slightly better than I had thought it would. It's a case that I thought that kind of harvest would take a little bit longer than it did, especially when I was taking into account the neighbouring field, but it actually all went pretty smoothly, so I think that is pretty much good enough. I'm going to grab them a bale as well if they will accept it, but I think they should. And there we go, they're actually looking pretty decent, and as I said, they are up to 70% health, so we are going to be selling off some pretty healthy sheep when the time actually comes. I think for now what I'm going to do is just move these 2 front pallets out of the way, and I may as well store them in this shed like I was planning to do. So yes, that has been the final day of summer. Tomorrow we are going to be getting a pretty early start with the silage harvest, and we will have no end of help coming in. I'm going to have course play, possibly levelling and compacting the silo while I am out with the other worker cutting the grass. So I think for now that is where I am going to leave it. I'm going to say thank you very much for tuning in. You have been watching Boomer Brown on YouTube, and I will see you next time.